Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM, and if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the channel at the moment, how about giving this video a like, maybe subscribe to the channel to help us grow, and perhaps even check out our Patreon. This video is part of the Love Your Railway campaign, and this week we're talking about education. So I thought the logical place to start would be here in the museum at the Foxfield Railway, because a museum is a crucial part of the education story. Without a museum telling you why all of this around us is relevant, what's the point of any of this? But a museum has to be more than just telling a tale. It needs to be accessible. It needs to tell that tale in a way that makes it relevant for a whole new generation to say, well, why should I care about any of this? Behind me, that information there needs to make this stuff exciting and relevant. It needs to expand and explain why we should care about this. Because for so many of us who are enthusiasts, we automatically just are excited about this. We just care about it. We need that education to teach that next generation, and for those people who aren't necessarily enthusiasts, why they too should be excited by this. There are so many places that have phenomenal museums and so many others that don't quite have it. We forget how important education is to be able to teach other people about this, to teach people about our hobby, and to teach them why it's exciting and why they should get involved. That accessibility, like behind me here, we have some bits talking about the history of Foxfield, talking about its career as a colliery, and then as the Preservation Society was set up. And this is a really good base to let people know why there was a railway here. And that level of interpretation makes the whole railway relevant. But education isn't just limited to things like a museum. No, there's a lot more to it. Education is fundamentally linked to the continuation of heritage railways as we know it. And as part of that, LMM itself serves as an educational tool. Because as part of our videos and taking you through this, I'm passing on some of my knowledge to you guys. I'm telling you guys how these things work. And for this entire hobby to continue, we need to be passing on that knowledge. Because looking at the back head of Marston, Thompson and Evershed number 3 here, for a lot of you, none of this would make any sense at all. Some of you may be able to grasp that this is the regulator and perhaps that's the reverser, but the array of pipework and gauges and controls here might not make any sense. It's part of the idea behind LMM to educate and be able to give you an idea of what some of this does. I don't expect it to be a tool that you can hop onto an engine and operate, but as a grounding idea of, oh, I've seen that before, I've got a vague idea. And that's what all this is. Coming and joining a heritage railway is an educational experience. As part of it, you will get to learn what all of this is, and more importantly, what it all does. And even more importantly, how to use it and what to do if it goes wrong. Education is so important in teaching people how to operate, maintain, and be part of it. Without it, you would not be able to do this. And that teaching is one of my favourite things to do on the footplate. I have no greater pride than somebody I have been teaching passing out as a fireman or a driver. In fact, one of my best mates, James, the day he passed and got it as a fireman remains one of the proudest moments I've ever had. And on my day that I was passed and assessed as a driver, he was my fireman. And there remained nothing better than the day that I became a driver, the man I trained to be a fireman was firing for me. Absolutely one of the best experiences I have ever had. And that pride is one of the most exciting things. That education and teaching the next generation and teaching new skills is one of the best things in heritage at all. And passing on those skills is one of the most exciting parts of heritage when you see that next generation start to pick up those skills. And lots of the time, we're not so good at passing on those skills, at answering those questions, but it's a vital part of bringing the next generation through. And for lots of us, frequently we'll get asked those stupid questions. Things like, does it really run on coal? Is it electric? Things of that kind. But these are all things that we can help educate the public. Because it's not just about educating people to operate one of these. It's about educating the wider audience in the same way as the museum gives you some level of interpretation. When we're on the footplate and doing something like this, we are performing a role. We're acting to a degree, and it's part of that role, part of that character of the engine driver to pass on an education of what it was like to operate one of these. Although people like me passing on the skills that we have and teaching the next generation isn't enough. If we don't teach people to come into a workshop and learn how to restore and overhaul things like this, then there won't be any locomotives for people like me to drive. There's a certain amount of grandeur around being a locomotive driver. People kind of take that to be absolutely top tier. But it's not. The real skill and the real heroes of preservation are people who take on things like this and try to restore them. And whether that's an overhaul, a locomotive that was running, humming its tin yearly, or a complete restoration job for something that, say, I don't know, came out of a scrapyard where it sat for the last 39 years, because, that sounds like a really good idea. But that too will serve as a valuable educational tool, mostly why you don't buy stuff out of a scrapyard. But to all the people who come and get involved, they're going to be taught and pick up new skills and learn about the railway. Education is something that doesn't need to be done in a classroom. It doesn't need to be forced. It can happen naturally and fluidly by coming and volunteering, by being surrounded by this, by getting involved in it. It's an entirely exciting and wonderful learning curve. And even someone like me, I'm still learning. You never finish learning. And that's the most exciting thing. There's always new stuff to learn, to refine, to find out more about this hobby. And there is so much out there to find out about. Just researching the history of my own locomotives, that was a learning curve, finding out where they've worked, what they've done, finding out what I need to do. It's been an education and learning more about the inner workings of it. It makes learning fun. And I know that sounds horrendously cliche, but being part of heritage and learning, education is so important, and we do it all the time without actually knowing it. And that's the most incredible thing, because when we look at heritage railways about doing education, people think about classrooms, about displays. They don't realize that just coming to a heritage railway and talking to people is an education. It's something that happens so wonderfully naturally. We can have people who come to here, or say the Mid-Suffolk Railway, where I can wax lyrical about the history and tell people about it and the silly little reasons that that railway should never have survived. It's all part of education. We don't need to make such a big song and dance about it. We don't necessarily need to try so hard. We just need to be enthusiastic about our hobby, and we need to bring people in and teach them without really trying to teach them. Education is so very important, but it's actually a lot easier than most of us think. So with that, let me know, guys, what's the best bit of education that you've either done or received in the heritage scene? Or is there one moment that you've seen somebody that you've taught do something that you were particularly proud of, like me with my mate becoming a fireman? And of course, if you have enjoyed this one, how about clicking somewhere over there on the screen for some of the other Love Your Railway campaigns? And of course, if you want more information on the Foxfield Railway, then a link to their website is in the video description, so you can find out when they're running and how you too can become a volunteer and begin your learning journey here at the railway. And with that, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you this time next week for another one of the Love Your Railway videos.